This call is now being recorded.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we have Slade Mahoney. Slade, I'd like you to go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and how we can get a hold of you, your website.
Yeah, my name's Slade Mahoney, son of Dr. Jesse Mahoney. I do AI consulting, so helping folks understand how to use AI for their businesses, for their personal ambitions. I also help them build tools and agents for their business. And you can find me at aiwithslade.com.
Take it away. Do you want to do like what's going to work
Yeah.
best for you?
Well, I have some slides. They're more kind of like generalized for the whole group, but wait, we have another guest. But if so I'll share my screen and just kind of run through some slides, just basic, like, oh, give me a sec. Got to allow sharing. Cool. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. The other folks' screens went away for me. So if you guys have any questions, just chime in, come off mute, okay? At any point.
And I'll tell you about if there's anything in the chat.
Awesome, perfect. So I kind of started doing AI consulting mainly from work that I did with my mom. And just, it's something that I've always used AI in my work since I think ChatGPT became really relevant back in like 2023 to help me kind of automate different tasks or just help me with kind of the day-to-day stuff, as you were mentioning, Stacey, just the things that you can kind of take off your plate. And there are a lot of those things these days. I know there's not a lot of people on the call, but I would love to just start with like, what, Stacey and Elizabeth, what are you guys hoping to walk away with today? Like, are there any like AI questions that have been on your mind that you are hoping get answered today? Yeah, you can go, Stacey, or if you can't talk, you can share it in the chat too. That's fine.
Yeah, no, me personally, I would love to learn how to do some automations. Like, I have an email that goes out at 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, and I have templates, and I just don't know how to make those go together and happen so that I don't have to manually do it. That's personally something I'm interested in.
Okay.
I'm just getting used to the whole AI world, and just so I do some AI with my practice, medicine, AI in medicine, but really not familiar with many of the other platforms. So I was really hoping to learn more about that.
Awesome. Well, that's good for me because I am less familiar with AI in medicine, but very familiar with everything else. So we can bridge the gap for each other. And Cecilia, anything you were hoping to kind of get out of today? Any like specific AI questions you were hoping got answered? And if you can't talk and you're busy, that's totally fine too. You can either shoot in the chat or we can move on.
Can you hear me or no?
Oh yeah, we got you.
Yeah, I'm still pretty new to the AI world. So I guess for me, it's how to start simple when you don't really know a lot, just to start to grow your audience and become a warm practitioner.
Perfect. Yeah, you should definitely be able to get that out of today. And that's kind of what why I have built this business and really kind of want to empower people with is just how to use basic AI tools. So just a little bit more on me. I've worked with AI for companies like Kaiser's, the CDC, Walt Disney, in various different capacities. But really what I want to do and help people with is folks like those that are on the call today, helping you guys get comfortable with AI, use it in your business, and even really at the higher end, like how do you build automations and build agents and build basically coworkers using AI that help you automate tasks that you don't really need to be doing, whether it's doing an email campaign or something like that. I'm curious, just one more question, and then I'll kind of dive into more content. But for those of you that have been using AI recently, where has it given you time back? And then what's an example of where it has really let you down? I'm curious.
I'll answer. Where it saves me time, and I know that I have a lot more work to do, but I basically created an AI avatar of myself, like an AI twin, and that's doing my videos. You can see like I don't do a lot of makeup. I'd rather be in sweats all day than be dressed up. And I know that when I get dressed up, but the AI twin truly does look AI, in my opinion. but I've seen some really good stuff out there that I'm trying to replicate. I just have to spend the time doing it. I'm doing something now where, just like watching YouTube videos or whatever. So that has saved me a ton of time. Podcast, I no longer do a podcast, like I do a podcast, but I use LM Notebook for that. I'll do an article like a blog, and then I throw it in LM Notebook. And yes, it's not my own voice anymore. It's a guy and a girl talking, but it's still content that I can put out there once a week. And so that I'm pretty happy with. As far as where it hasn't, like, I guess the AI, it's taken a long time to do an AI twin. And I know myself, like if I were to do more recorded videos of myself and put it up there, like it's tweaking it. But I'm just not there yet. Slade.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Sharon.
What about you guys? Cecilia, Stacy?
Yeah, I can go next. I use it quite a bit. Where I think it saves me time is agonizing over how to write emails. Sound more professional, more business-like when I'm dealing with vendors and things like that. And it's saving me time. Like, I'll make up content, but then I'll give it to AI and I'll say, put a green line. It changes the font. It makes it all look much more professional. So that stuff has been amazing. I'll give it my ideas and it will, I don't like the way it generates content because it's hard to get my voice, but it will put my ideas into better order and make it look nicer. So I think working with it, I feel like it helps bring out it helps me be my best. That's what I think AI can do for me. Where it falls short for me, there's a few reasons. First, I don't always like its recommendations. I'll say, give me and then I look it up elsewhere and it's not something I would choose. So certain things I think it's great at, certain things I think it's not. So I don't like the recommendations. And then also what I've noticed in myself recently, I thought, great, AI is going to save me so much time. And I looked at my phone of how much time I spend chatting with AI. And it's actually a remarkable large amount of time. So maybe it's making me more efficient in some areas. I'm now spending more time because I'm learning more, or we're discussing more, I'm getting better strategy, and I don't know if I really need that. So I'm becoming more conscious how it is another time suck, almost like an addictive process. And now chat will say, oh, do you want me to tell you X, Y, Z too? And well, I try to use cards more now. But so that's where it's falling short for me, not the technology itself, but the way I'm interacting it. But I realize I really need to be conscious of modulating the time I'm spending on it because it's not saving me as much as I thought.
Yeah, that's a really important perspective. I find myself in the same space a lot of times as well, where you're just kind of going back and forth in circles and you're not creating actionable items or having it actually create something or do something. So I think that's really important to remember. I do want to just kind of kick off and get started, but if you, the other folks on the call, if you want to share in the chat, would love to just hear from you as well. And Sharon and I can try to address some of those things as we move through the presentation and the workshop. So some important distinctions, I think, that just from a general knowledge perspective about AI, what AI knows and what it doesn't. It's really important to remember that AI is basically a pattern recognition system. So it's trained on everything that's on the internet. And really what it does is it is really good at predicting, based on patterns, what comes next. It doesn't know things like your personal information, who your clients are, who your family is. It has a hard time remembering what happened yesterday, especially if you don't use a paid version of either like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI tool you use. A lot of the paid parts or the paid levels make the memory better, basically. So if you're just using a regular like ChatGPT with no account and no paid version, it does have a hard time remembering really like what you told it yesterday. And that's often why we find ourselves repeating ourselves over and over again. And it also doesn't know your voice, your tone, your preferences. As Stacy mentioned, it is really hard to train AI to speak or to produce content in your voice. But the best way to do that is to give it more information and give it more examples, which we'll talk about soon. So it's really important, I think, just to stop asking AI for things that it doesn't have and start giving it the context it needs. And context is really important. So things that AI is really great at, as both Stacy and Sharon mentioned, and these are just kind of the more basic things. Sharon, I honestly didn't know a ton about LM Notebook, but that's a really creative way to use AI to like continue to produce content. But it's really good at writing, editing, summarizing, you know, going back and forth on explaining complex things. If you want to ask it for business direction, you know, translating and rewriting tone, and really role playing as well is something that I found it effective for, whether it's a tough conversation about asking for a raise or even a conversation like with your parent or your kid. Just going through that and practicing it once, even though it is AI and it's definitely not responding the actual way that it's going to happen, it can help you kind of prepare for those scenarios. Things that it struggles with, as we mentioned, it definitely does not replace your judgment. It doesn't know your situation. It doesn't replace your intuition, and it doesn't know a lot of things that happened recently. And by recently, I mean like within the last 24 to 48 hours, because it takes a little bit of time to update. Yeah, also personal therapists, that can help as well, for sure. Where you can actually use AI in your life, that I think some practical examples. What I've used it for recently is like pasting confusing policies, whether it's like insurance, leases, medical reports. You guys probably don't need that since most of you I know are physicians, but I do because I'm not. And asking for like, what does this mean in plain English? How would you explain this to a fifth grader? It's really useful for that. If you have like, if it's a policy or something and there's like 50 pages, you're not going to read through the whole thing. Throw it into AI and be like, what are the 10 things that I need to know about this, and where can it affect me? And what should I be worried about? It's really helpful for that. We mentioned emails. Getting polished emails is helpful, but I do think it's still important to review them and make little tweaks here and there. It can help you plan trips, emails, and then it can also, using AI for yourself can really help, I think, help you train and teach your kids how to use AI responsibly, because it's hard to teach our children things that we don't understand first ourselves. So I find that to be something really critical, especially at this juncture and where we are in society. For your business, and that's kind of the core of what we're going to talk about today. Email responses, super helpful for that. Drafting content, really helpful for that. And I'll show you how you can kind of automate a bit more of that. It can help describe your workflow. So if you have been talking to AI about your business and you can describe your workflow, it can tell you where you might be able to utilize more AI in your business, and where you can automate things. And one thing I like to do is ask the AI, like, okay, I think I can use you for this. Is that possible, or what would I need to do? And it knows its own capabilities pretty well, for the most part. So it can give you ideas on where you can automate or where you can use new AI tools to help you automate different things. So what's out there? I know we mentioned there's medical or medicalized doctor AI that you use in the exam room, and things of that nature. For the common folk like me, there's a number of different tools that are readily available. I'm sure you've heard of a lot of them, but I just kind of want to go through like 4 here, and if anyone has other ones that they have questions about, I can try to answer them, but these are the ones that I've used mainly, and just pros and cons of each. ChatGPT, that's the one we'll use today. That's the one I think most people have heard of. It's very readily accessible, available. Great all-around starting point for most people. Really good at summarizing things. You can build tools, you can build workflows and processes on there. Claude is a ChatGPT competitor. I really like Claude for its writing. The writing feels a lot better. It feels a lot more nuanced and conversational. And with both ChatGPT and Claude, you can use them nowadays to actually build applications, build websites, build tools very, very easily. And you don't need to know how to code. You can simply, they both have these options. ChatGPT, it's called Codex. Claude, it's called Claude Code, where you can go so far as to build an application for yourself, or build a website for yourself, or there's just like infinite number of things you can do with it now. And those are the 2 tools I would recommend for using in like a building scenario where you're building. Gemini or I'm blanking on the Copilot. Those are the ones, at least that I've seen, that we generally use like for work, or that our works sponsor. They work generally well, although I would say they're not as good as ChatGPT or Claude. But the downside of a lot of these work relationships and work policies that we have is you are not allowed to upload sensitive or proprietary information into your own personal AIs, you have to use the ones that are sponsored by your employer. So that's why for, work-related stuff, I recommend using whatever your work is paying for or currently uses, which can work equally well, and they work very similar to ChatGPT and Claude, but it's a bit more narrow in its scope. Last one I'll talk about is Perplexity. That one is amazing for research. It runs on top of Claude, but it's its own website. If you want to look up, say, what is the, I don't know, what are all of the different ways you can treat COVID-19, for example, or what are all of the different ways that people have created a business using Facebook, and what do you recommend for me? Perplexity is the #1, I would say, unmatched tool for looking at large swaths of information and generating a really concrete, concise response based on all of this info. It does take longer for you to get a response. It's not as a conversational tool, it's really for research. So I'd recommend that for that. Are there any other AI tools that you all have heard of that you, I don't know, want some clarity on or have questions about outside of the ones that I've talked about just now? Okay. I'm not
I
seeing.
think
Oh, go ahead.
those
Sorry.
are the most common, Slade, right? I haven't even heard of others. Those are the most popular.
Yeah. There's a lot of other tools out there, but I would say, for general conversation between yourself and AI and getting feedback and stuff, these are the general ones that most folks use. There's also Grok, which is the Twitter one, but it works the same as Claude and ChatGPT. But yeah, so those are all the ones I just mentioned are ones that are mainly, you input something into a chat, it responds to you into a chat. You can also voice memo, voice record yourself, and it can respond to you as a voice as well. But essentially, that's what today's AI looks like that most of us are using. You ask something, it answers. You tell it something, it gives you feedback. You still do a lot of the work. Where this is going, and something that I'm currently working on and have worked on in the past, is agentic AI. So that goes from kind of telling you information to actually doing the work. So booking appointments, sending emails, filling forms, calling you, doing follow-up calls to make sure you go to your appointment, things of that nature. This is already currently being deployed in hiring, which is where I worked in it, using customer service, healthcare, and finance in a lot of different ways. But what this means for you really is that all of our tools are going to get dramatically more powerful the next 12 to 24 months. And we're going to start to see AI a lot more in our day-to-day lives, whether it's calling to book a doctor's appointment, or even having an AI call us to make sure we're coming to the appointment, or anything related to that, or even doing an interview over the phone. It's just going to be a lot more prevalent in our society. So I think it's important to understand how these things work and what's kind of the backbone of these systems. Just a quick word on privacy, just because I think it's really important. Do we use AI safely? And especially if you're handling your own business information or financial data, or you're holding information that's in your business, that's other people's kind of secure information, whether it's social security numbers, passwords, financial details, never upload those into AI. All of this is stored in some cloud. We don't know exactly where it goes or who has access to it. So it's important to just really keep sensitive information out of it. And if you do use anything business related, try to use the paid tiers, and then you can opt out of having AI being trained on your data, because especially if you're in a competitive business, you don't want to talk to ChatGPT and then all of a sudden 5 months later, it's recommending that somebody compete against your business, for example, it's possible to happen. General rule of thumb, if you wouldn't paste it into a public Google Doc that's shared with everybody, probably don't paste it into a free AI tool. That's the rule of thumb that I use, and I think it's kind of a good just starting point to have privacy-wise. So what we're going to do now is kind of dive into how we can start to make what's called AI assistants. And you can do this on any platform, but essentially the key skill here isn't knowing AI and knowing all of how it works. It's really knowing how to ask it, how to prompt it. So treat it like a smart colleague. Tell it who you are, what you need, and why. And all of that's really important because we need to give our AI context into how it can best work for us. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to build just a custom live tool. I've made this before for my mom, Dr. Jessie Mahoney's business. So you'll see kind of what I do, every decision I make, kind of what context I give, how to phrase it. And then you can build one alongside me, or you can just kind of be live with me and come back to the recording later. And basically, we'll walk through how to go through every choice, what we need to prompt it, all the information we need, and how to build like an assistant that does a repeatable workflow for you. And just to be just transparent, this is kind of like the light version of this. You can actually build something like Stacy was saying, like that actually deploys emails. It just takes a little bit longer and you need to give it more permissions on your computer, whether it's sending like emails 3 months, 5 months, 6 months out. It can do that as well. This probably won't be able to do that. You would likely need to go like a little bit, well, today I'm not going to build that, but you know, on a deeper level, you need to go a bit deeper into AI and into these tools to build something that can actually act for you agentically and take actions for you. This will take actions. What we'll build today is an example of something that will take actions, but it's kind of like the same repeatable action, if that makes sense. So let me see. What I'm going to do now is share a link in the chat. And for those watching recorded, I can share this with you, Sharon, so you can add it to the recording. So what this, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you, how do I switch my screen here? Give me 1 second. I have created a ChatGPT assistant that's going to help kind of facilitate this, the building of these AI assistants that we're going to make. So the link I put in the chat is what you'll see now. So it's an AI intake GPT. What this has done, I've created this basically using the flow that we're going to go through now. And why we're going to use this instead of just like the regular chat here on the top left is because it's just a better way to like streamline the process. So you can always go back to this. It's a free tool that I made. Like you can use the link and use it to help you create instructions whenever you want. But you could do this exact same thing in the chat on your own. I just want to make that clear. You don't need this tool. But why the tool is helpful here is it's going to prompt us different questions to really kind of teach how much context you need to give your chat in order to build instructions to eventually build an assistant. Does anybody have any questions before we start? I want to make sure we're kind of like all on the same page, and sometimes it's better to front run any questions before we actually dive in.
Everybody good? Cool. Take it away, Slade.
Okay, cool. So if you go to the link, I'll live type here. You can just type in hi. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask me a series of questions. So it's going to ask me 6 short questions. The goal here is to build instructions that will create an AI assistant that will do a repeatable task for us. So I'm going to do it for my mom's business. She does physician coaching as well as retreats. Specifically, we're going to build a tool that takes transcripts from the podcasts that she's done and helps her post that to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So it builds show notes for her podcast based on the transcript. So my business is, I'm going to say I'm my mom, but identity fraud is a real, it's not a joke, but she said it was okay. Or I work for Dr. Jessie Mahoney. My job is to, or I'll say I provide physician coaching and retreats. I also do a podcast. What I'm not going to go full into like what I do, why does it matter? But in real life, you would really want to Oh, thanks, Heidi. You'd really want to like go deep into and give it all the context you can. So if I was doing this for starting from zero, I would say I'm Dr. Jesse Mahoney. I do physician coaching. It's really important because there's physician burnout, and folks don't have like a way to unwind, and I provide them with tools to kind of go through their daily lives at work with more ease. For example, or if you're Stacy, I do. I'm going to butcher this, Stacy, so I apologize. But I do like group travel, and the goal is to like create more community because of X, Y, and Z. So all those things like that. So, but more so, I'm going to tell it more what I need. I need to take my podcast transcripts and create show notes on multiple platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other places people get podcasts. It might ask me some follow-up questions. Oh no, it said it was clear. That's good. So one thing that's really important, I think, when you're building these assistants, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, is the reason why it's so hard to get things to talk in your voice is because it doesn't know you. Like it doesn't have your body, your mind. But one thing we can do is we can give it examples. We can give it a gold star example of, like it's asking me here, what do you wish those show notes included? So whether this is formatting, whether this is tone, whether this is, keywords that you like to use, this is important in terms of the context you give it. So it can really help it kind of work in your voice. So what would a really great finished result? A great finished result would be, I'll just say 5 key takeaways. I don't actually think this is how my mom does it, but 5 key takeaways, SEO keywords optimized for Google search and for AI search. I do not need timestamps, but I want it formatted as such. 5-sentence summary, 4 key takeaways in bullet points, and 3 calls to action with hashtags at the end for SEO, something like that. Later, we're going to upload our kind of gold star key examples so that it knows this is exactly what I'm looking for. Because typically, I would say you would use these things for tasks that you have done before that you just don't want to keep doing, whether it's like writing an email or sending an email or responding to something or doing show notes such as this. Who's your target audience? Target audience, our podcast listeners, likely physicians or healers who are listening to Healing Medicine podcast, usually later, mid to late career stage, trying to solve burnout and fulfillment, for example. Okay, so this is another thing too that's important if you're not using the prompted questions that we have here. So if you're doing this in the chat, all of the questions I was asking are things that you would need to remember on your own if you're not using the link that I shared. So it's asking, what do you want this to do step by step? So step by step, I will give it like a full podcast transcript. And saying, do you want one version of the show notes or multiple? Because I did ask for different things like Apple Podcasts versus LinkedIn versus my website. I need this to create a title and give me, I'll say 2 versions, one for Apple Podcasts and YouTube, and one to share on LinkedIn. The output is what I will post directly into these platforms. Okay, here's where we talk about tone too. And there are certain things that I think are best practices to include to help AI not sound so AI. One thing I always tell AI to do is I say, don't sound like AI. And just saying that makes it a little bit better. So I'm going to say, for tone, don't sound like AI, sound like Dr. Jessie Mahoney. And then I'm going to say you can find her work at jessiemahoney.com. Use her voice and writing style to do the show notes. The other things I think are key, like AI giveaways, and feel free to add any in the chat if you think there are other ones that I'm missing. But the main one I say is don't use excessive dashes, because I think that's a pretty dead giveaway. Like I don't think anyone really writes using dashes all like this all the time. But ChatGPT specifically does quite a bit. So yeah, I always like to include that and other things, but it is helpful if you say, okay, don't sound like AI. You just need to be really clear with things you do want it to do and also things you don't want it to do. So context is really important. Should it feel more physician-like? Let's say it should feel like a coach. Any specific words, phrases, or ways of speaking that feel you? I'll say speaks with warmth and I don't know, balance. We'll say something like that. Yeah, coach like, warm, balanced. You can say I was making something that was a sales coach for me, like doing like mock sales presentations, and I told it, sound like Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr, very like have high expectations, but be very forgiving and positive. So you can say like anything like that. So things your assistant should never do: never sound robotic or generic, do not be pushy, be very informative. So yeah, like I mentioned, all these questions are really just for just additional context that you would need to, like, you're not always going to use this tool. Likely you're going to go into your own ChatGPT and say, I really need an email generator. I really need X, Y, and Z. And all of these questions are just meant to create the thought in your mind that, okay, I need to give it all of this context. I need to give it all of this context on what to do, what not to do, how it should sound, tone. And this final question here is, what examples or source material would you like to use? So I'm going to say I'm going to upload a couple of gold star show note examples. Mimic those exactly. And I will upload podcast transcripts. Since if you have a website or anything, you can also say like use all publicly available work from Dr. Jessie Mahoney that you can find to supplement how this assistant's voice should sound. So if you do have a website or anything that's publicly available, it is really helpful to say like, hey, definitely start with like, do you know who I am? Or like, I am, Sharon McLaugjlin. Can you see my website and my blog posts and the book that I wrote? Do you have access to that? Okay, then you can say, and it says, we'll say yes or no. If it doesn't, you say, why don't you have access to that? If it should be public. Usually it will though. And you can say things like, use all of that publicly available information about me as my voice. And that will give it a lot more context than, having to actually prompt it over and over again. So it is really helpful to upload things that are in your voice to give it real examples. So the output of this, and like I said, I'm just going to reiterate, you can get here not using this prompting tool. You can get here just through talking with the chat. And you can say, what I would say is, I'm looking to write instructions for a AI assistant in ChatGPT or in Claude or whatever platform you use. And it will create these instructions, and then I'll show you how to kind of build this. So always review the instructions too. Just do a quick read through, make sure it has the things that you told it, because AI does make mistakes. So it looks pretty good, I would say. It'll also give you prompts that you can put in, but those are kind of less important, I think, because you're just using this for you. So to actually create a GPT or an assistant, and I'm saying GPT assistant, but in Claude, it's called a Claude project. Every platform has their own version of this. But in ChatGPT specifically, the way to create it is, if you see here, if you go to recents down here, these are just all your recent chats. And you get there by starting a new chat, or you can search the chat. The GPTs live in this tab right here called GPTs. These are all different ones that I have built personally. And right now we're on the AI intake GPT. So to create a new one, you go up here to the top, and that is not how you do it. You go down here, actually. You go to Explore GPTs. This is actually a cool tool as well if you haven't checked it out. These are all other publicly available tools that other people have made. So for example, my wife does a lot of geographic information systems work, GIS work, to map things and water sources in different places. So you can type something like GIS tool, and it will give you, other people have made chat GIS, which is like an expert. This is in Spanish, but an expert, you're a go-to expert for ArcGIS, QGIS, any questions like that to help you use the tool. So people have spent countless hours building other tools that can help you, that you can just find by going here and then clicking add to your GPTs on here. So to make your own, though, you'll go up here to the top right corner where you hit create. It will give you a 2-pane window here. On the left, this is where we're going to put in our descriptions. On the right, this is like where you can beta test certain things. So there's also two parts here, create and configure. I would always use configure, because create is just a little more like messy to use. So the name of this GPT is going to be whatever name you want to name it. So I'm going to call it, for this one, podcast show notes assistant. Description, you don't need this, but if you want it for your own context, since this will likely be an internal tool that you use, I'm going to say turn podcasts into show notes. And then the instructions. So this is what I had copied and pasted from the output that our assistant gave, that the GPT gave us earlier. So I'm just going to paste that in there. Anything in here, it will learn, these are the instructions of how this assistant should act, what it should do, how it should sound. It has all of that information in there. So the more context you can provide it in these instructions, the better. You can also, as you're using it, give it directions in the chat as you're using it, but that's less effective than actually changing the core instructions. The last thing here we're going to do is we are going to upload some files. So if you have examples that are like your gold star, oh my goodness, I don't know where I am here, but that are your gold star examples of, show notes, or in this case, show notes is what I'm going to use. That's what you would upload here. Let's see. I have no idea where my show notes are now. Let's see if I can find them. Here we go. Okay. Where are they? Downloads. Let's go down to show notes. All right, so we're going to upload these 3 gold star show notes. Oh, I did that twice. I'll just remove the duplicates. Okay. So our gold star examples are in there. Our instructions are in here. Now we're just going to hit create. And you can share it either anyone with the link, the GPT store. That's where all of those publicly available tools will appear if you want to share it with everybody. I also think you can get paid somehow to do that. I'm not quite sure. But it's kind of like, YouTube views or uses. I'm not exactly sure how that works. You'll have to look that up on your own. But I know people create that as like a possible income stream. I'm going to do only me since this isn't really relevant to anybody else. You hit save, and then it'll give you a link. But if you hit view GPT, it will take you right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is make sure it works. And let's see, we're going to do that by finding a transcript and uploading it. But I can't remember where I put my transcript. Here we go. Okay, so we're just going to make sure it works. So I'm just going to copy and paste in a transcript from a podcast that my mom did from probably a couple of years ago. And it should give me episode title, what the version is. Here's my 5-sentence summary. Here are my 4 takeaways, my calls to action. And these are things I would replace the numbers. And you can kind of tweak this isn't like actually what my mom would probably post, but you can keep making it closer and closer to what you would really do by working in the instructions. So it gave me exactly what I was looking for. It's got a LinkedIn post that can go with this as well. And essentially what I would do is just copy this in, throw it into LinkedIn, schedule the post, and that's kind of all your time there versus having to actually write the post yourself or go through the podcast and do the actual show notes. Any questions on anything that we just did, like how to use it, anything like that? Anything coming up for people?
Do you guys get what Slade is doing? Any concerns there, questions? Stacy writes amazing.
I would say yes. Well, Stacy, I know we were talking earlier, you want something to like actually send emails. This level of a tool will probably not be able to do that for you. But I can help you build one, or I can show you how to build one that's like, it's essentially the same process, but you need to make it deployable outside of just ChatGPT. So there are different ways that you can do that, where you can like automate emails or responses or things like that. But that's kind of like one level above, I would say, like a more basic. I would say this is the best place to start if you've never made a tool like this before, for sure. This is kind of like level 2 or 3 of using AI.
Heidi, I know you came in late. Do you have any questions with AI? Can you show you? Oh yeah, no, you should share it now. Don't even wait till the end. Go ahead, Heidi, raise your hand.
Oh yeah.
Or come off of mute if you're able to.
No, thank you so much, Slade, for this really good talk. And the key thing, I've took away many things from this. I have a lot of notes, but it's
nice.
Bottom line is, I guess knowing the right prompts for you, your business. Yeah, it's just just watching you fill in, the questions for the next output, I think is the most helpful thing. I don't have a particular question. I just need the continued practice. So I'll probably be watching this on replay with, my GPT open. So.
Yeah, I would say that's the best way to kind of go about doing this. I had a coach or like a mentor a couple of years ago who was a coworker of mine who helped me learn how to use these tools. And this is exactly how we did it. So I'm just kind of like transferring the knowledge to other folks. And so what I did after he showed me, okay, this is what we literally just basically went through this. Like he showed me, okay, this is how we need to build our voice, build our tone. And at the time we were trying to create like drafts of RFP responses to different projects that we were trying to bid on. So he kind of sent me through that. And the best way to do this on your own is like, just practice, iterate, try it yourself, do it with all of this stuff on the side, watch the video on the side. And then if you need to kind of troubleshoot or take things to the next level, that's when I would recommend either reaching out to me or somebody else who can kind of help you elevate or level up. Let me see. Let me try to address your question, Stacy. If I share an assistant I make, no one is tied to my account, right? I use someone else's. Right. That's a great question. So Stacy's question in the chat is, if I share an assistant I make, no one is tied to my account, right? Or if I use someone else's, my info is private, right? Kind of a two-part question. If you share an assistant that you make, if you share it publicly, no one's on your account. They're just like, it's basically like you are publishing a website and people are going to your website, but they're not like updating your data or changing the assistant at all. So you can share it with folks or you can share it publicly and like it will still be yours and they're not going to be using the usage on your account or anything like that. And they won't be able to see anything in your account outside of like, essentially when we make an assistant, we're making like a container in which ChatGPT or in which you're going to work. So the knowledge it has is mainly focused on what you've told it in the instructions and what you feed it. It does obviously still have access to like the internet and things like that, but that's kind of a good way to think of it, is that you're just like making a container in which your assistant can work and think. The other part of your question, if I use someone else's, is my info private? I believe so. For instance, if you use the link that I posted here, like I can't see your chat. I can't see anything that you've done or anything like that. In terms of like, where does the data go? I have no idea. So I would just, again, if you're not using your own assistant, be careful in what you share. But if you're asking whether I can see your responses and what you're inputting, I cannot, or whoever's assistant you're using cannot see that info. I hope that answers the question. Awesome. Cool. Well, I just have like 2 more slides that I want to share, just kind of like summary of what we've done. And then if people want to stay on and, you know, ask either specific questions or more general questions, I'm happy to kind of stay and answer literally anything you have AI related. It's what I work on day to day and what I've done for the last couple of years. So happy to do that. This says 5 things to take with you. I narrowed it down to 3 because 5 was just too many to remember. I think. So the 3 main things I want you to take away: teach it your voice before asking it to write like you. If you're asking Stacy to write an email like Stacy, it doesn't know who you are. It doesn't know your voice. The best thing you can do is give it examples of your voice, whether that's emails you've written, whether that's blogs or journal entries you've done. That's the big difference between this AI sounds like AI or this AI sounds like me. And again, it won't actually sound 100% like you, but you can get it pretty close where you only have to edit a few things. Build tools, don't just ask questions. We just built a tool today, and so now you should know how to build like a basic tool. But the real way to leverage AI is, and Stacy mentioned this earlier, and it's something that I think a lot of folks deal with, is it's not like, you don't want to spend so much time going back and forth with AI, asking it questions. Where people are getting the most leverage of getting time back or saving or amplifying their voice or just really getting the highest leverage impact from AI is building tools. So, you know, a prompt can save minutes, but a tool can save you hours a day for weeks on end over years, for example. And then the last kind of main thing I want to just leave you with is, if your editing takes longer than your writing, you're using it wrong. What that means is, if, for instance, in this podcast show notes thing that we just created, if I have to spend like 30 minutes editing the output that it gave me, I didn't put good enough instructions or good enough inputs to actually save me time. I end up using more time than if I had just done it myself. So that's just a really good barometer of, is this actually saving me time? Do I need to prompt it differently or do the instructions differently? So yeah, if the editing is taking you longer than like the actual time it would just take you to do the thing, kind of start over and figure out kind of where you went wrong. I would say it's just a good way to think about it. So keep going with me. I'm going to post my website in the chat, right now. But you can find me at aiwithslade.com. I do like one-off individual sessions. I also do like a 3-package session, or I can actually build you a tool myself. I kind of like the 3-package session specifically because it allows you, I think after 3 sessions, you'll really get to know like, how can I really build things? And you'll feel comfortable in between sessions, like you're going to iterate, you can come back with new questions each time, and we can really try to make you a comfortable user. And the goal is not just to give you like, we're going to build you something or a couple of things if you can go faster. But it gives you the tools to like, I can now do this on my own, and I can like amplify and continue to iterate and make my own tools outside of this. Like you shouldn't need to keep booking more sessions with me is my goal for you. And then I also do group sessions that are more like custom one-offs. If you in a group of 4 friends want to come on, those are on my website as well. But bottom line, just reach out to me via email, links on the website, or go to my website. That's the best way to reach me. But yeah, really appreciate the time. I will stay on and answer like any questions you all have, literally anything about AI or anything like that. Happy to be a resource and yeah, just provide any information I can.
Slade, I really appreciate, you coming into our community and talking and sharing what you know. It's wonderful. So glad that, Jesse reached out to us. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the platform. So really appreciate it, Sharon.
Parul, I know that you hadn't really introduced yourself at all, or met Mundo. It's a great opportunity to ask some questions. Nobody else has questions?
Hi, thank you. I'm just trying to manage a toddler while trying to listen in.
Oh, I
Didn't
hear
have
you.
any specific questions, but this was very helpful. Thank you so much.
Slade, I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you before you put that slide up, do you work with people one-on-one? So the question for you is, what is the best way to come prepared for that first meeting to make the most out of that sort of first hour with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say a couple of things. Once we kind of lock in a time, I'll like give you, it's not really a form or a questionnaire, but like if you go to my website and book time, there are different questions that it asks you in terms of like, what are you hoping to learn? What do you want to build? What have you done so far? I think the best thing to, the best way to come prepared is try to come prepared with either specific questions or a specific thing that you want to work on, or a problem. Like you can come with you're like, hey, I have this problem. I'm not sure if this is possible, but I want to make this. Can we work towards doing that? And for me, the most helpful way to make the best use of our time is to send that in ahead of time via email. So I have time to prepare, and like, say you have a problem and I'm like, okay, I would rather not spend the first 15 minutes being like, I think this is possible. I think this isn't. I can do that research before we show up, and we can mostly just kind of get to building and iterating and answering any questions that you have that come up. So I would say the best way, yeah, come prepared is prepare before, send me an email of all the info you kind of want to do. And then, but really try to have something specific that you want to work on, whether it's something you think you can build or a problem you need solving or something like that. That makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, you guys?
Go, Stacey.
Question for Slade. This was excellent. Like Sharon, one of my questions is, when will you post this? Because I would love to comment. I really think people would enjoy watching this and get a lot from it. I think that was.
Yeah. So what I normally do is today is Monday. It's early in the week. I try to limit my newsletters going out because I don't put a lot of emails in. I usually just do one email every Sunday morning that goes out at 7 a.m. Is it 7 or 6? It goes out at 6 a.m.
You're not going to have it in the Facebook group.
I will. So once it goes out, then I do the replay.
Okay.
Once
Thanks.
the email goes out. But yeah, no, we could put it as Slade is Jesse's son. We could put it in ahead of time. But you
Yeah.
do have to, I'll reach out to you guys, and Heidi too, if you don't mind commenting. The problem with the YouTube, even if I put the link in the comments, is that anytime, for the most part, right, when Facebook uses links, like when we do links, it doesn't show that post to a lot of people. And it all goes back to Facebook doesn't want you leaving their platform to go somewhere else.
You can always ask people to reach out to you for the link, or something like that. But I do have a question about this. Like, I'm going to limit my questions. But one thing, like, I pay for Claude, so it somewhat knows my voice, and I have one chat of newsletter, so it's done newsletters with me. So each time I add in a newsletter, I think it's closer and closer. How would I can create something like this and say, these are my ideas and I want you to turn it into my voice. How would that be so different from what I'm already doing at this point after doing it many times in one conversation with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. The difference is when you have, like, if you just do this in a chat, and that's one thing I think a lot of people start with, right? It's like, okay, you make a chat, that's just your newsletter chat.
Right.
It's the difference between working inside of the container, which I talked about, or when you're working in just the chat, it's still taking in all of this other context that could be, probably is irrelevant to the actual task that you want to accomplish. So it's using more brain power. It's kind of just, there's more noise than signal.
Okay. Right.
So it's like, you could keep doing that, but to get the best product and to get it like fully fine-tuned and really just nail down the memory, you'd want to make a project, or in Claude it's called a project, but it's the same thing as one of these assistants. And then you can actually create chats within the project that further feed the memory. And it can be like, this is my newsletter for April, this is my newsletter for May. Like, you don't have to keep going back to the same chat. You can make chats within the project.
Oh, that's great. Because my other question was going to be, if you do want to update it, let's say you want to give it further instruction, do you do that through the chat? Do you give it how you changed it and say, give me all new instructions and start all over? What's the best way to update it?
Yeah, you can do both. And it kind of depends on how much you need to correct, if that makes sense. So if you're just making minor tweaks, like, hey, from now on, always bold the title of this section. That can be done pretty easily through the chat, and it can remember that. But that's why you want to keep it in the project, because the project's going to remember that a lot better than just a one-off chat. If it's bigger things like, you know, like the way you keep formatting this paragraph is awful. Like, for example, like it needs a better topic sentence consistently, and it needs to be more whatever. Then I would go back, and you don't have to change the whole instructions, but once you do the instructions, you can just go back into that one section where it says like, you know, paragraph 3, or, you know, the section on latest travel edition or whatever. You can just go and edit that specific section. You don't have to edit the whole thing if everything else is fine. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, you guys? Well, Slade, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. What we'll do is I'll, you know, take a while to download or whatever, but I'll put this in the group tomorrow night around 8:30 usually, and so I'll tag some people if you guys don't mind commenting.
Awesome.
All right. Slade, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sharon. Really appreciate it.
Nice
Thanks
to
so
meet
much for all
you.
the questions too.
But I see little Jessie in you. So
Bye.
Yeah, I look like
have
her.
a great night, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sharon. This was great.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.